What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video I'm going to give you a video build guide for the Frostbolt Totem's Hierophant that I played back in 2.6 in the Turmoil race. It was very successful, it was very powerful, and because of that I wanted to turn this into a build guide. The power of this build lies in it being really cheap. There's no unique items required. There's some recommended ones that you can then farm for or try to build up some currency to buy. The build is really good. Clear speed all the way up to tier 16 maps. It's not a boss killer though. That's one of the weaknesses of the build. It's not particularly good at killing like those really tanky bosses. It's not bad or terrible at it, but it's not exactly good at it. I've killed all the guardians with this. However, it felt painful, and it's not something I would recommend. So if you're looking for a boss killer, do something else. But if you're looking for something that's really fast, very efficient for farming, or just something that's easy to get going and fun to play, then I think this is a good build to start out with in 3.0. Also, I've set up a forum guide for you guys to check out. There's a little more information here, but I will try to cover a lot of it in this video too. But the link for this is in the description of the video. So if we start by taking a look at the skill gem setups, I'm using Frostbolt, Spell Totem, Controlled Destruction, Faster Casting, Increased Critical Strikes, Hypothermia, and then Cold Penetration. However, this is a 6-link, right? But the thing I want to show you here is that when you get to a certain amount of cold penetration in the skill tree, Hypothermia becomes a more powerful damage multiplier than cold penetration. With cold pen we get 136,000 DPS, with Hypothermia we get 142,000 DPS. But it depends on how much penetration you have in the beginning, well, cold pen is probably still going to be slightly better against some bosses, but for the most part, Hypothermia, once you have the items set up, will give you more damage. So that's your 6-link. Besides that, we're using a Flame Dash, Faster Casting, Arcane Surge, and Increased Duration setup. Arcane Surge adds a ton of mana regen and damage for this setup. Without Arcane Surge, we're at 114,000. With Arcane Surge, we're at 142. And with these supports linked to Flame Dash, you can make sure that it uses enough mana to proc the Arcane Surge. Then for singular bosses, we're using an Orb of Storms, Increased Critical Strikes, and Power Charge on critical setup. And that is to make it so that, well, we can generate power charges when we're not killing stuff. So Orb of Storms will work here to generate them or maintain them at least. And I'm using Clarity too. Alternatively, you can stop using Clarity and use a Clear Mind duel. This adds a lot of damage, but for very end game, I found that when you're using Mind over Matter as we are, if you're not using Clarity, a high level Clarity, it becomes a little more dangerous. You have to rely much more on your mana potion or your mana flask, and you will still have to do that with this build, but it feels better with Clarity. But you can take it out if you prefer the more damage with Clear Mind, so you're not reserving any mana. Then I'm using the traditional Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, summon Flame Golem, and Increased Duration setup. I'm using 2 Vol Haste gems with Increased Duration and Projectile Weakness. In the beginning I was using Frostbite, but Projectile Weakness is a higher damage multiplier, so I would recommend you use that. Also, as you can probably see, we're helping Elira when going through the game now, and we do that for flat mana regen, amazing for the Mind over Matter and the scaling with increased mana regen percentage. We get crit multiplier, that's perfect, and resists, which, well, just makes it easier for us to gear our character. But let's take a look at the Ascendancy, and I'll explain why we choose this. There are other choices you can go for. You can go Inquisitor too. You can go Ascendant, a combination of Assassin and Deadeye would be powerful, for instance. But I've chosen the Hierophant for a few reasons. Number one is Divine Guidance. It gives a lot of mana, and it gives 10% of damage is taken from mana before life. This stacks with Mind Over Matter. So instead of having 30% of damage taken from mana before life, we now have 40%. It's a pretty decent boost, and we just get a ton of mana on top of it with it. It also gives, well, mana regen and stuff via all these small ones here, and totem placement speed and all that stuff. So it's pretty good. We're also getting Ritual of Awakening. That's the other big thing we're getting as the Hierophant. And it allows us to have 4 totems with this setup. So together with Ancestral Bond, that gives us 1 more, plus the 1 we can have inherently, plus the 2 from Ritual of Awakening, we can have 4 totems. And the nice thing about having 4 totems is that you can place them in like a line as you just clear through the map. And when you have 4 totems, it makes it so that the first totem you placed is still attacking, or have been attacking for a decent amount of time when you place the 4th. So you have like a really, really impressive area covered, because you don't have to constantly resummon or remove totems to resummon them at a different place. I'm not sure if that made any sense, but basically it allows you to have a very large area covered with the Frostbolt totems, because you are able to, well, spread them out further, and it increases your clear speed by quite a lot. One thing to consider here, though, is that if you want to save some points, you could potentially spec out of Ancestral Bond and just rely on having 3 totems. That's completely optional and viable too. We're also getting Pursuit of Faith when we're moving into Ritual of Awakening. Pursuit of Faith gives us damage per enemy killed with our totems, and some attack and cast speed when we have a totem up. So that's pretty much all the time. And the amount of damage we get per killed is 6% right now. It was just buffed. And with Frostbolt totems, because you have such a large area, because they kill so fast and cover so much, you get a pretty significant buff up and running most of the time with Pursuit of Faith. It's pretty powerful. It doesn't do anything for bosses, of course, but still, that's not the intention of this build. It is to have good map clear speed. And then finally, we're getting Conviction of Power, and it makes it so that we have 15% chance to gain a power charge if our totems kill something, and 25% chance to gain an endurance charge when we gain a power charge. So this is pretty efficient at maintaining power charges when you're just running around mapping. It's a nice quality of life thing, and it allows you to maintain endurance charges too, which makes you a little more tanky. This build only gets 3 endurance charges though, but you could consider speccing into 4 if you wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. It's nice, but then again, Conviction of Power is not going to do anything for bosses. But it is a nice quality of life for just general mapping, so you don't have to rely on your Orb of Storms setup when you're just mapping. That is just for when you need to deal with bosses. As for the rest of the skill tree, it's pretty straightforward. It's a life-based, Mind Over Matter, crit stave-based build. And the reason we use staves is that it's kind of hard to get a decent amount of crits if you are in this part of the skill tree, especially if you're using spells. So to make up for that, we're using staves, because when you're using staves, you can get Serpent Stains and the minor nodes here for increased critical strike chains, and you can also pick up such things as Counterweight down here and the 2 minor nodes for a pretty decent critical strike boost. Besides that, it's just elemental damage, spell damage, life crits. We of course get the Shaman's Dominion totem node here together with the multipliers, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. It's not too much to say here. There's leveling skill trees in the forum build guide too, if you want to see how I suggest you spend your points as you're leveling it. Maybe one of the important things to mention here is that the Frozen Trail jewels is pretty much required. That's what you want to get for this. And you need to place 1 here and 1 over here. That allows you to get 5 additional projectiles for your Frostbolt and a lot of extra projectile speed. And when it comes to leveling, I would probably recommend leveling with Freeze Pulse and making it your priority to get your Frozen Trail, your first Frozen Trail jewel unlocked as fast as possible. As of now, you can buy them in Act 5 and socket them into your skill tree. So around that time, once you get your Frozen Trail, I would suggest you go from Freezing Pulse into Frostbolt. And from there, make it your priority to go over and grab Ancestral Bonds so you can start using totems. Once you've done that, try and go for your second Frozen Trail jewel, while of course at the same time making sure you have enough life and mana to sustain your Mind Over Matter. But as I said, there are leveling skill trees in the guide. Now let's take a look at the gear that I'm using here. And as I said, there's no unique item required except for the 2 Frozen Trail jewels. However, there are optional ones. And the first one I'm using is Terran's Shiver. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Level of socket cold gems, spell damage, cold damage, cast speed. It's pretty nice. You don't have to do that. You can just use whatever other 5-link staff, but try to maybe get some spell damage, cast speed, or 2+ to cold socketed gems, right? They're pretty cheap, very easy to get a hold of. If you want to get a cheap 6-link, you can typically find some cheap 6-link staff on PoE trade just because not too many people are using it. Also, you can try to farm for, I think it's called the Dark Mage Divination card. If you get 6 of those, you can turn that into a 6-link staff. But for late game, try to get yourself a Terran's Shiver staff and 6-link that. And I've tried comparing this staff to something like Realm Ender and things like that. And Terran's Shiver is the one that gives us the most damage. Then I'm also using a Belly of the Beast. And the reason we use a Belly of the Beast is simply because there isn't that much life in the skill tree. We have around 190, and that's with quite a lot of points invested, right? So with Belly of the Beast, it's going to make it easier for you to scale your life and be safe. We're also using Winds of Change, and we do that for mainly projectile speed and projectile damage. It also gives a bit of life, so that's nice. We're using the Pandemonious Amulet. And the Pandemonious is sweet because it gives cold penetration. That's a pretty big damage boost. And it chills enemies when we hit them. It works for your totems too. But the nice thing is that when enemies are chilled, you also blind them. And when you blind them, they have a much, less chance of hitting you. Making you safer that way. So Pandemonious is very powerful. Then I'm using a Rumi's Concoction, and with this, when I press my Rumi's, I think my block goes to like 50% or something like that. Can I see it here? Yeah, blockchain is 50%. 50%. It doesn't seem to... Yeah. 50% when you block, or when you use Rumi's Concoction, and you get some armor too, so that's nice. And that's really the uniques that I think is good for the build. But as I said, they're not required except for the Frozen Trail jewels. Just use rare items until you can get these things here. But once you get them, they are a very nice boost for the build. And that's what I wanted to show you guys. I think this could be a really, really good starter build for 3.0. I would go so far as to say that this is as fast for map clearing as the old Flame Blast totems that was used quite a lot in 2.5 and 2.6. It's probably not as good against the bosses, but probably faster than that when it comes to map clear. And by having a fast map clear, you get lots of drops, and those drops you can turn into currency. But yeah, consider trying this out if this is your type of thing, but make sure you of course have the MTX for the Frostbolts, otherwise it's just weak. Check out the forum guide, subscribe for more Path of Exile content. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even.